10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 137. Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 137 of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. Hope you guys are feeling good during this holiday season, and welcome back. If you are brand new, my name is Nick Manella. I'm the creator and host of this show, and we are so happy you're here. Just a reminder that you can get the PDF to this episode and all of the other episodes that we've ever done by going over to our Patreon page, and you can find that by checking our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, and clicking on one of the Patreon links. We've had a lot of people joining us over the past couple weeks, and in fact, I want to give a shout out to our brand new patrons. So thank you to Richard, David, Ron, and Peter. Thank you guys so much for joining the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson family, and we hope that you enjoy all the benefits that your membership gets you. If you've got $3 a month to spare and you feel like you want to support this podcast, that is the best way to do it. Keeps the show running, keeps it coming at you every single week, and helps us with all of the costs associated with this business. All right, let's get into today's episode. So today we're going to be looking at a snippet from a solo of one of the best alto saxophone players, one of the best modern alto saxophone players that I know of, Kenny Garret. And what we're going to do is we're going to reach all the way back to 1985 to a video that exists on YouTube that we'll put in the show notes so you can check out the entire performance. But this is Kenny Garret playing over the jazz standard I'll Remember April, and the band is just amazing. It features Freddie Hubbard, Dizzy Gillespie, and Woody Shaw along with Kenny Garret. So Kenny Garret is the saxophone player amongst all of the trumpet players on this video. And this is back when Kenny was pretty young, just coming on the scene, just kind of knocking everybody's socks off with the way that he played. And this era of his playing, you could start to hear what he was going to kind of turn into. You're starting to hear Kenny Garret's original voice developing on the saxophone. But he played a lot more bebop back then. So I do love going back and checking out this era of Kenny Garret's playing because it's very, very informative. And this is kind of how he burst onto the scene and first started making a name for himself before he went on and made all those wonderful recordings of his own and kind of solidified himself as a very unique voice in the jazz world. So, as I mentioned, this is over the jazz standard I'll Remember April, and one of the cool things about this tune is it features these sort of extended four-measure phrases over one chord, and there's also a ton of 2-5-1s in this particular tune, so it's a great tune to study some transcriptions over. If you haven't checked out I'll Remember April, if you don't know that tune, I highly suggest adding it to your catalog because this is a tune that gets called a lot and just a great one to know for when you're going out there and you know, going to jam sessions or playing gigs or anything like that. So instead of focusing on the 2-5-1, I wanted to focus on this one line over an E major 7 chord. Now, I'm presenting this to you in the key of the alto saxophone. So this is not concert pitch, this is not B flat, this is the notes that Kenny Garret actually played on the horn. So if you play a different instrument besides an E flat instrument, you're gonna have to kind of take this line and put it in the original key, which is a great exercise for you to actually do. So I'm gonna be playing the exercise on piano, but just know that it's not gonna line up with the tune because I am gonna actually be playing it in the key of concert E, which that tune is not in. But let's dive into this line. There's so much going on in this line. It's a great example of playing inside, then outside, and then back inside while coming up with such a great plethora of ideas over just 4 bars. So let me play the line for you first, and I want you to really, really hear how complicated this particular line is and how well structured it is. And then we're going to break it down, talk about the different parts of it. So you can probably already hear how harmonically adventurous this line is. So let's get into it and break it down into its different parts. So he starts off by playing a really, really inside statement. It's simply 3-3-5-3. And this kind of sets the tone for what he's about to do. He wants to establish the tonality, and then he's going to kind of take it out. So this is what we hear over the first 2 beats of this particular line. Then what he does is immediately goes to the triad a step up from E. So he's playing an F sharp triad, and he's playing an inversion of it that goes 3 to 5 to 1. This is a really common sound over a major 7 chord. This is the Lydian sound, but expressed in a triad a whole step up from the root. So after those first 2 beats, for the next 2 beats of the measure, we hear this sound. A really, really pretty sound because we hear that sharp 11, and that's what's really ringing as a tension in it. So it's like hearing 2 tonalities at once. We're hearing F sharp, but we're hearing it over a bed of E. Now he starts to get pretty out in these next 2 beats, and I'm going to go ahead and venture a guess is that he's hinting to the key of F major. We see a B flat to an A to a C. So it's not a complete F major triad, but in my mind, and again, I could be completely wrong, I can't read Kenny Garrett's mind, but this is part of the beauty of breaking this stuff down is that we get to formulate our own opinions about it. But we hear this really, really kind of outside line that lands on the flat 13 over a major chord, really starts to take our ears on kind of an adventure through this harmony. So here's what the next 2 beats sound like. So you can hear that little snippet of the line is all about the tension, all about that tension over E. Then he kind of brings it back in for the next 2 beats. So he simply goes back up to the 3rd of the E major 7 chord and then comes chromatically down to the 9. Let's check out what that sounds like. So this is a really cool example of going out and then bringing it back in so that your ears don't spend too much time in that really, really dissonant area. You just kind of hear it going outside the key, coming back in, going outside, coming back in. And this is a great lesson for us on how to handle the dissonant sounds that we'd like to play. Now, I bet not many of you think that you could play an F major triad over an E chord, but it's all about how you frame it, right? It's not just about playing that F chord. It's about playing that and then immediately bringing it back in. So let's hear what that entire measure sounds like, and that'll give you a great example of that technique. Now the next measure is really cool as well. He's going to play off the interval of a 4th. And that's a really, really important interval in jazz. We hear that all over the place throughout jazz history, particularly in the kind of modern jazz style. This measure is just full of perfect 4ths. So he jumps down to a D sharp and then immediately goes down to an A sharp, which is a perfect 4th. Then he jumps up to a C sharp, and now we see 3 successive 4ths. So we see C sharp down to G sharp down to D sharp and then back up to G sharp. So this is a really, really nice sound where he's utilizing the interval of a 4th to its full potential. Let's check out what that sounds like. And then he ends the line very, very inside by just simply playing 9, major 7, and down to the natural 13. So let's check out how he brings it all back in at the end of the line. So this is a pretty amazing statement that he's making over these 4 bars, and that's why I chose it. When I was transcribing this solo, immediately I thought, oh geez, I have to show that to the listeners. He's using so many different techniques in such a short time over a pretty fast tempo. So this is something that we can all strive for. Now let me put the line together now that we've discussed its requisite parts. Let's check out what it all sounds like together, and now you can actually follow along with your ears through all the different techniques that he's using. Now, one thing that you've got to do is you've got to go hear Kenny Garret actually play this line. That's a really, really important thing, because when I'm playing piano, I can't come close to presenting it to you exactly how he would have played it. And it's so important to hear things in context. Plus, I know you're going to absolutely love this video, and you're going to love his entire solo, along with the solos of all the legendary trumpet players on this particular performance. So make sure you go back and check it out. Now, how can you use some of these techniques in your own solo? Like for me, it's kind of scary to do something like use an F major triad over an E major 7 chord, but that's one thing that I would love to use as an example for how to get into it. You know, it's kind of like taking a license from somebody like Kenny Garret and saying, well, if he can do it, I should probably figure out how to do something like that and work some of those sounds into my playing. Okay, so hopefully this has been helpful to you. If you analyze the line in a different way than I have, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear some of your ideas about what's going on. They definitely don't have to line up with mine. This is just one person's opinion. There can be so many different angles that you can look at this line from, but this is how I see it. So you've got a different idea. Make sure you post that in the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson community group on Facebook, or shoot me an email, 10minutejazzlesson@gmail.com. All right, that's going to do it for this week's episode. Hope you enjoyed taking apart that line as much as I did. Hopefully it can be of some benefit for you. If you'd like to get your hands on the PDF to that particular line, make sure you go over to 10minutejazzlesson.com, click on one of the Patreon links, and you can get this PDF and all of the others. And we really appreciate that support. All right, we'll see you next week with a brand new episode. Have a good one, everybody. Talk to you soon. Bye.